Inside the Magic, show number 363 for March. This week's episode of Inside the Magic is brought to you by Magical Travel. Disney Magic is yours with a new resort room offer. It is a perfect time to visit the Walt Disney World Resort. You can stay at a Disney Deluxe Villa Resort and save 30%. It's been going on for a few weeks now. Actually concludes a couple of weeks from now on March 31st, so you're going to want to ask about that or other great rates and other resort categories for most stays through June 14th. You want to do all of that by calling Magical Travel today at 866-207-8387, or you can visit them online at magicaltravel.com to receive a free price quote, and be sure to mention Inside the Magic when you inquire with them to receive your free Disney gift card for qualifying bookings when you book your Disney vacation with Magical Travel. And of course, the great folks over at Audible. You can get access to over 85,000 audiobooks to choose from for an iPod, MP3 player, listen on your computer, all for free 30-day trial over at audibletrial.com/InsideTheMagic. And, of course, thanks very much to listeners and viewers like Pete Toscano, Joanne Levely, and all of our monthly recurring donation subscribers. Anybody who's made a donation clicks through our affiliate links at the website. All of that good stuff. It does help support the show. Just got in some great new equipment, video and still camera equipment that I'll be using very, very soon, and share even more great content. And your support helps to purchase all of that. So thank you very much. And now let's get started with this week's trip around the world. It has been a busy week, just another busy week in the world of theme parks, Disney, and beyond, and certainly leading up to an exciting upcoming week. This coming Friday, I will be setting sail on the new Disney Fantasy cruise ship for the inaugural Magical Preview Cruise, and that means, I just wanted to say this up here at the top of the show, today, of course, is Sunday, just like every week. We've got Sunday podcasts. However, next week will be an exception. There will be no Sunday show, as I will be somewhere out in the middle of the ocean, and as much as I would love to do a show from the Disney Fantasy internet connection aboard a Disney cruise, while available, is not the best. It's very slow, and certainly not able to do a podcast from there. Plus, I'll be enjoying my time on a cruise rather than podcasting. So there will certainly be a show next week, but it will likely be on Tuesday, maybe even Wednesday, depending on how quickly I'm able to pull everything together. So just follow on Twitter, twitter.com/InsideTheMagic, Facebook.com/InsideTheMagic on Facebook, and I'll update everybody as to exactly when the next recording will be. We'll probably do a live show just like we are right now at InsideTheMagic.net/live. And in addition, of course, there'll be the regular video and audio versions of the show released shortly thereafter. Just wanted to let everybody know that there won't be a Sunday show for next week, just a couple of days later. Also, I will certainly be posting plenty of pictures and video and reports from the Disney Fantasy in the meantime. Also, I wanted to mention, last week we featured a new Inside the Magic contributor, Maggie, talking about the Flower and Garden Festival, and I asked what everybody thought about her contribution to the show, and everybody that emailed really enjoyed her segment. So I got lots of positive feedback, which is fantastic. Small improvements that we'll make to her segment coming up in the future, but she'll definitely be back on the show pretty soon, probably in a couple of weeks. So with all of that said, let's jump into this week's news. As I said, there was a lot of it, and the biggest story by far was the fact that the very first phase of the new Fantasyland expansion at the Magic Kingdom out here at Walt Disney World soft opened. It's Storybook Circus, and it's even phase 1 of Storybook Circus. It's not all of Storybook Circus quite yet. Dumbo, the new Dumbo, or at least half of the new Dumbo is included in that soft opening, along with the reopening of the Barnstormer and the Fantasyland Train Station. There's still plenty of construction walls all over Storybook Circus, as it's not done. This is just phase 1 of it, but it looks great. Lots of details, looks great at night, and I'll have a much closer look and report from Storybook Circus a little bit later in this week's show. Moving on from there, for the moment, let's turn our attention over to Epcot, where Disney had a big announcement this week that the Kim Possible World Showcase adventure, of course, Around the World Showcase, is going to be changing pretty soon. It's going to be receiving a Phineas and Ferb theme. Kim Possible will be out. The new version of it is going to officially be called Disney Phineas and Ferb Agent P's World Showcase Adventure, and it's going to feature the secret agent alter ego of Perry the Platypus, of course, called Agent P. And he'll be battling against villain Dr. Doofenshmirtz. And that'll all take place this summer. I have a feeling the adventure is going to be more or less the same as it always has been. It's going to be in the same countries, still carrying around a cell phone type device, but they're basically swapping out the characters. Instead of the Kim Possible group, it's going to be the Phineas and Ferb group with an emphasis on Agent P. Disney has said it's all going to debut this summer. Didn't give a specific date or month, but rumors point to the switch happening in June. So if you're a big fan of Kim Possible and her World Showcase adventure, you're going to want to go around to all the countries around Epcot and take part in that before June. Some more big news from Walt Disney World this week is definitely great for visitors looking to stay connected while traveling to Florida. Walt Disney World Resort finally has rolled out free Wi-Fi internet access, wireless internet access across almost all of its hotels. This includes access in the rooms, common areas, pools, restaurants, lobbies, and the exception to it is Fort Wilderness Resort and Campground. There's wired connections available for those staying at Fort Wilderness, but no wireless there. But every other hotel around Walt Disney World now has free Wi-Fi. Of course, when you sign on, you have to agree to Disney's terms and conditions, but beyond that, you just log right on. And from what I've heard, connection is a little bit spotty. It's really good in some places and not so good elsewhere, but that's pretty typical of a hotel Wi-Fi. Of course, it'll all depend on the time of the day and how many other people are working or rather using the Wi-Fi connection at the same time. But it is wonderful that Walt Disney World has caught up. Of course, Disneyland Resort in California had free Wi-Fi, has had free Wi-Fi at Grand California and Disneyland Hotel for a number of years now, so it's great that Walt Disney World is catching up with everybody else finally. Let's take a step away from Walt Disney World and Disney in general here to talk briefly about something that I didn't want to do a whole full feature on here, but certainly worth paying attention to, something I really, really had fun doing this week, and that is the new Hollywood Drive-In Golf over at Universal Orlando CityWalk. That's two very inventive miniature golf courses there. My wife Michelle and I spent more than 2.5 hours playing both of these courses, 36 holes total. Really, really fun miniature golf. Universal Orlando's designers, many of them former Imagineers, worked closely with developers Adventure Golf Design and Development, who are also responsible for Congo River Golf, in creating these two courses. They are The Haunting of Ghostly Greens and Invaders from Planet Putt. And I must say, this is definitely Orlando's best miniature golf at this point. I had so much fun playing through it, particularly at night. It looks fantastic. I've got a full report over at InsideTheMagic.net with lots and lots of photos and videos, video tour of each of the courses. I recommend, if you're going to be playing over there, start right before sunset, kind of in the daylight, but the sun's going down. Everything will still be lit up, and then as you progress through the course, the sun will set, and you'll really get to enjoy both the daytime and nighttime versions as you go through. Pay attention to the soundtrack as you're playing through. They did did a really good job playing themed music for each one. The sci-fi course plays a lot of sort of space-related songs like David Bowie's Major Tom and, Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd, and things like that. Over in the haunting side, there's a lot of sort of Monster Mash type songs, which are really fun. And there's actually a bit of a story, too. Read all of the different plaques that are at the beginning of each course, and you'll be able to really enjoy all of it. More specifics, The Haunting of Ghostly Greens. The theme as you play through, of course, is a bit spooky, but not too spooky for anybody. It's sort of a happy spooky, very Haunted Mansion sort of happy haunts thing. A lot of smiling ghosts. There's some hints of Tim Burton, Alfred Hitchcock, and some classic Universal monsters in there, but for the most part, it's all just original themes. And there's even a surprise startle or two in there, which is great. I really, really had fun playing through that. And then the other side, the Invaders of Planet Putt, has little green men who are smiling as they invade Earth, and probably has a stronger overall story than the haunted side does. There's a lot of really fun gags, of course, cow abductions and Area 51 and all of that. It's spaceships coming down and you get abducted as well. It's a really, really enjoyable mini golf course. The only downside to it all is that it can be a bit pricey, or is a bit pricey. Of course, it's about $15 to park at CityWalk or at Universal. There are times when it is cheaper and there are special offers, but during the day, that's how much it is. And then if you want to play one course, it's $14 for adults or $12 for children 3 to 9. Or if you play both courses, you get a little bit of a discount and you get it for $24.49 for adults or $20.99 for children. So it is probably one of the more expensive miniature golf courses you're going to ever play on, but it's something that I think if you're a mini golf fan like I am, it's well worth it. It's really, really a fun pair of courses. Again, all of that's over at Universal Orlando. Moving on from there, one more bit of non-Disney news here, something that opened up not too far from Universal Orlando, over on International Drive, which is, of course, a very touristy area. Lots of chain restaurants there, lots of sort of unique exhibits. Well, the newest restaurant is, let's see if I can pronounce this correctly, Fogo de Chão, I believe is how that's pronounced. It's a Brazilian churrascaria restaurant. If you're familiar with something like Texas de Brazil, it's very, very similar. They had their grand opening just a few days ago. They have 15 open flame roasted cuts of beef, pork, lamb, and chicken in unlimited portions. It's, like $42 or so for dinner, which is not cheap, but certainly worth it with the amount of food that you get. It's absolutely delicious. They invited me to check it out, and I've got a full review of that restaurant over at InsideTheMagic.net as well, if you want to see lots of photos and even a bit of video from inside the kitchen and read all about the tasty morsels that are part of that restaurant. Now let's jump right back into the world of Disney, and actually we're going to jump coasts over to California, where here's some news that I am not happy about whatsoever, though it was expected. System failure is imminent over at the Disneyland Resort as they pull the plug on Electronica at Disney California Adventure. April 15th is the announced final night for Electronica, the nighttime Tron-themed party in the Hollywood Pictures backlot area. It is indeed end of line for that particular event that's been going on for months and months and months now. The whole area, of course, will be reconfigured soon into Hollywoodland instead of the Hollywood Pictures backlot. The Mad Tea Party is going to take place instead of Electronica. To send it out with a bang, Disney is planning a Tronathon dance competition starting tomorrow, as well as on Tuesday, and then it's going to be every weekend through April 15th. They're bringing out 8 dance crews who will compete against each other, and Disneyland will pick the winners, and then ultimately the winner of this grand dance competition will be awarded the Disco Ball trophy, and that champion, of course, will be named on that final night of Electronica, April 15th, and no word as to whether Electronica will find its way anywhere else. I highly doubt it. It's probably not coming out here to Florida. It's probably not going overseas. It's probably just simply going away, unfortunately. Definitely one of my favorite things Disney has done in a very long time. I will miss it, but I do plan, last time I was there, I was there in January, and that was my final chance to see Electronica, and I did try to document it as much as I possibly could with every available technology that I had. So in the coming weeks, sometime between now and April 15th when it closes, look for a tribute to Electronica over at InsideTheMagic.net. But with that closing, of course, there is plenty plenty opening over at Disney California Adventure. One of the many things opening on June 15th will be Buena Vista Street, and recently via Disney Auditions Online, 2 new street entertainment acts have been more or less revealed. They're of course going to be themed to the 20s and 30s. They'll be performing on Buena Vista Street, which will be the essentially the main street of Disney California Adventure. The 2 new acts will be called Five and Dime, which is also the name of one of the stores that will be there on Buena Vista Street, as well as the Red Car Newsboys, which sounds a bit similar to Disney's Newsies, which just opened on Broadway for a limited run a couple of days ago, but not exactly Newsies, just very similar. Five and Dime is described as, quote, a high-energy musical group, Five, fronted by a female singer, Dime, with the vocal stylings of Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday. Apparently, they're going to be playing 30s jazz standards. Instrumentation in the band will include a tuba, string bass, guitar, banjo, percussion, woodwinds, tenor sax, and trumpet. Auditions have already taken place for that group, but coming up on Tuesday, March 27th, Disney's going to be auditioning for, or holding auditions for, the Red Car Newsboys. That's going to feature a young female singer, dancer, actor described as a tomboy who dresses in her brother's clothes. And then there will be other male roles that include Johnny Kip, Feats Charming, Brass Tacks, and Shorty McGuire, all intended to be young teenagers who are just kind of out there and doing all kinds of funny acts. Very similar, it sounds like, to the Streetmosphere performers that are at Disney's Hollywood Studios, though with a bit of a different theme. If you are interested in auditioning for the Newsies type group there, the Red Car Newsboys, head on over to DisneyAuditions.com for all the details. This week was the 2012 Walt Disney Company Shareholders meeting, the annual meeting, and this time around there were no huge revelations or big announcements. The question and answer portion with shareholders at the end was certainly the most informative of the whole thing. Disney didn't really announce anything huge prior to that. During the question and answer session, one shareholder asked Bob Iger if Avatar is still in progress. What's the latest word on that? What is the state of the Avatar project for Disney's Animal Kingdom out here at Walt Disney World? And Iger replied that design work is just beginning on the Avatar project, and he said it's not likely to open until 2012. There's been a lot of rumors floating around out there that the Avatar project was completely canceled, that it wasn't going to happen, and at least officially, according to Bob Iger, the CEO and president of Disney, it is indeed still in the works. He said they had just met with James Cameron just a couple of days prior to the shareholders meeting, and that it is most definitely still in the works, but certainly not going to be opening anywhere near in the anywhere in the near future. 2015 is when it will be opening up at the very earliest. If I said something, chat room seems to be correcting me there. If I said anything other than 2015, I meant 2015. Anyway, moving on, sort of on the same topic there, another shareholder said why Avatar, basically. Why did Disney choose Avatar for this big new land instead of something like a Star Wars land? And Iger, at that point, took the opportunity to tout the recent Star Tours upgrade at Disneyland and Walt Disney World, saying that was sort of their adventure into the world of Star Wars. And he brought up that Avatar had massive box office success, and that was really driving their desire to pursue that. Of course, Avatar became the biggest box office winner in history, and Disney saw dollar signs there. Whether or not Disney should be making decisions based on dollars, that's a whole other story. Iger was also asked about Marvel in the Disney parks, whether or not that would show up, and Iger said they are looking at options, quote, around the world, and quote, not likely in the U.S. Anytime soon, but perhaps we'll see some Marvel incorporation into the overseas Disney parks. And then somebody else, another shareholder at the meeting, asked if there would be more 24-hour days like the One More Disney Day recently at Disney parks. Iger said, quote, that was a huge success. We were all surprised, end quote, but also said that there were no known plans to do it again in the foreseeable future. And finally, in the world of movies, Bob Iger did say that some work was being done on a future Muppets movie / sequel, and he quickly after saying that, he said, quote, but I'd better not say any more about that, end quote, noting that he doesn't always know exactly what Disney has officially announced or not, but essentially he confirmed what everybody already knew, that a Muppets sequel is in the works. That's about it from the shareholders meeting, except for one announcement that Disney did make from there, which was a new company-wide initiative called Heroes Work Here, in which Disney is planning on hiring, training, and supporting returning veterans by creating at least 1,000 jobs for returning U.S. veterans over the next 3 years. They're also joining into a national public awareness campaign to encourage job opportunities for veterans as well. So this week, from the world of D23, the official Disney fan club, tickets went on sale for the Faniversary events that are coming up over the next few weeks around the country. A few different cities, Los Angeles, Chicago, Orlando, etc., San Francisco, New York, and one more that escapes me right at the moment. Anyway, ticket sales were just a couple of days ago, and D23's website wasn't entirely prepared, it seems, for the onslaught of members who were all trying to get tickets at the same time. It was a lot of crashes were happening. A few hours later, they did fix it all, and tickets are still available. It doesn't really look like any of the cities have sold out quite yet. Of course, Disney said this is D23 member pre-sales right now, or advanced sales, and then later would be sales to the general public, as long as there were still tickets available. And it does seem that there are plenty of tickets still available if you want to attend any of D23's upcoming Faniversary events. Here's some TV news coming up this coming Friday on March 23rd. Tangled Ever After, which is the sort of short sequel to Tangled, is going to have its TV premiere on the Disney Channel. It's going to be at 9:15 p.m. Again, this coming Friday, March 23rd. If you didn't see it with Beauty and the Beast 3D in theaters, this will be your first opportunity to see it. It's going to be shown on the Disney Channel just after The Princess and the Frog airs as well. So set your DVRs now. I certainly have. I look forward to seeing. I did not have a chance to catch that in theaters, so I am definitely looking forward to finally seeing Tangled Ever After. And final bit of news this week in the world of movies. John Carter, of course, I talked about last week on the show, and it's now in its second weekend of release and not doing so well as many have predicted. It's third place, apparently, in the estimated totals this weekend. The Lorax, instead, is holding that second place spot with the new movie 21 Jump Street at number 1. Looks like John Carter picked up about $13 million this second weekend, considerable decrease from the around $30 million from last weekend, which already was a bit of a disappointing opening. Comparatively, The Lorax is in its third weekend, and it picked up $22 million, which is $9 million more than John Carter has, which is not good news for John Carter. The 10-day total for John Carter is about $53 million, considering its $250 million budget, even lumping in overseas ticket sales for John Carter. It is definitely not doing spectacularly. Of course, it will probably do a bit better once it hits Blu-ray and lots of positive word of mouth continues to spread. I enjoyed the movie. I will certainly review it once again once it comes out on Blu-ray. I encourage everybody to see it. It seems like most people that I recommended John Carter to did end up enjoying the movie. Unfortunately, most people out there just don't have any desire to see John Carter because the marketing has been so poor, unfortunately, for it. I didn't want to see it until I saw it, and then I saw it, and then I enjoyed it. Anyway, so it's not doing so well, but that's not really surprising anybody. And that'll do it for your news from around the world this week. And this week, we're going to be concluding our 3 weeks of Disney Cruise Tips as I lead up to my upcoming preview trip on the Disney Fantasy. Once again, Jennifer offers a Disney Cruise tip. Writing debarkation was the only problem we experienced on our recent cruise. The lines to get off the ship were extremely long. I suggest going through midship deck 3. But choose the line that is closest to the elevators, not the one that goes through the corridor by the Royal Palace and Animator's Palette. It was a crazy time. Jennifer, certainly thanks very much for the tip this week and the last couple of weeks' worth of tips as well. And I agree, getting off the ship should be a painless experience. Unfortunately, unfortunately, a lot of people are all trying to get off at the same time, and that main exit, as you're describing near the Royal Palace, sort of that main atrium area, is where most people will think to get off and debark the ship. And if you can pick one of the other areas to get off, that's probably a good idea. So there it is. Looking forward to getting on board the Disney Fantasy in just a few days. And of course, anytime you can email your own tips into tips@insidethemagic.net. And before we get to a really fun feature and announcement here on the show this week, I do want to put in a quick word about and welcome back Theme Park Connection as a sponsor of this show. And they are back because they have some great announcements to make of their own. Of course, when we last talked about Theme Park Connection here, they had opened up their brand new store and warehouse out here in Winter Garden, Florida, just about 15 or 20 minutes north of the Magic Kingdom, selling rare Disney collectibles and unique items. Now they have announced a reality TV series is in the works for Theme Park Connection. No more details about that yet, other than production has already begun, so stay tuned for more there. In addition, Theme Park Connection is now open on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., so if you aren't able to make it over there during the week, you have a chance to visit their newly expanded warehouse. They've actually doubled the size of their store and warehouse, more than doubled, actually, so lots and lots of great Disney collectibles, rare items from the parks and beyond to check out. Of course, they have an online eBay store as well, so you can find out more information about the location of their store, as well as links to browse their items online on eBay, all over on their website at themeparkconnection.com. Now, longtime listeners of Inside the Magic may recognize the piano rendition of a Disney song that I'm playing in the background right now from musician Tom Ameen. We've featured his music here on Inside the Magic many, many times over the years, and this week Tom is finally pleased to announce, and I'm happy to help him do so, that 3 of his Disney renditions are finally available for purchase after so many years of you enjoying them here on Inside the Magic. He's got a new EP available on the iTunes Music Store. The EP is called Solo Piano Moments, and it features 3 Disney tracks: Golden Dreams, Fantasmic, and The Wonderful World of Color, as well as 3 non-Disney tracks that he's done piano renditions of as well, which are Lady Gaga's Born This Way, Katy Perry's Firework, and Madonna's Express Yourself. Certainly a big difference between the two topics, Disney and non-Disney, but you may be fans of both. And sort of in honor of all of this new release, Tom also, his website is over at tomameen.com. He's also launched a new YouTube channel over at youtube.com/TomAmeen. That's TOMAMEEN. And with that, he wanted to share one of his new videos with us this week. It's a song you've already heard here on Inside the Magic at some point in the last few years, but certainly one worth sharing again. It's one of Tom's own personal favorites of his own renditions. It is the Disney song Golden Dreams, certainly an emotional song, a really great song, and now you'll be able to enjoy a video version for those of you tuning into the video version of this podcast as well. So I want to turn our attention over here for just a few minutes to musician and pianist Tom Ameen to entertain us with Golden Dreams. And there you have it, another great song by Tom Ameen. As I said, his music is now available, at least 3 of his songs, over on the iTunes Music Store. That'll make it this week's featured item. If you want to pick up, you can buy each of the songs individually, the 3 that I mentioned, or the whole EP if you'd like. And if they do well, if they are successful, if you buy a lot of them, then Tom does plan on releasing more of his great Disney piano renditions in the future for you to purchase and keep and own and enjoy. So I thank Tom Ameen for sharing his great music for so many years with Inside the Magic, and I'm happy to let everybody know about his new release and wish him the most success going forward as well. Really great stuff.
Hear ye, hear ye, royal guests throughout the land. It is now time for a Fantasyland expansion update.
All aboard! Let's go!
And it is indeed time to dive a bit further into the new Fantasyland expansion, because this week, Monday morning, was the soft opening of the very first phase of that new Fantasyland expansion. Amidst the busy spring break season, Disney decided to open up the first part of Storybook Circus. It's not the entire land yet, but it is Phase 1, featuring half of the Double Dumbo, the newer half of that, along with plenty of high-quality and highly immersive areas. And included amidst it all, of course, is the reopening of the Barnstormer, featuring the Great Goofini now, as well as the Fantasyland Train Station. And I must say, heading on over there on Monday was a wonderful experience. It's a very detailed environment, a very relaxing environment, surprisingly, which Mickey's Toontown Fair never was, which, of course, was what Storybook Circus replaced. And very inviting, colorful, but not overly colorful like Toontown always was, and certainly an enjoyable replacement of that colorful chaos that was Mickey's Toontown Fair. As I said, 3 former attractions of the Magic Kingdom have now reopened, the Dumbo, the Barnstormer, and the Fantasyland Train Station. And if you visit InsideTheMagic.net, you can see lots and lots of photos that I took throughout the new area of the Magic Kingdom. Also plenty of video as well, but I do, of course, want to talk more about it here on this week's show. Now, much of Storybook Circus, at least half of it, is still surrounded by construction walls. The path to enter Storybook Circus is not even quite complete yet. You enter sort of as you're walking over toward or nearby the Mad Tea Party in Fantasyland. You start to see where construction walls for New Fantasyland become an area you can actually walk in now, and it's not just totally blocked off. And as you're entering into Storybook Circus, there's a preview sign of sorts that Disney has posted on the construction walls, and they've actually been adding more and more of similar sort of poster signs throughout the construction area in recent days. But the Come One, Come All Circus, Storybook Circus sign features a number of characters on there, sort of as a, well, it's a preview of what's to come. Goofy's on there, of course. Casey Jr. is on there, marking the coming soon water play area that will be there, along with Pete for Pete's Silly Sideshow. Not open yet, but that will be coming soon. Probably going to be sort of a meet and greet, but we'll see. And new, sort of on this, in addition to Dumbo, new on this sign was Humphrey the Bear, which is the first time we've heard anything about that old Disney character being part of Storybook Circus. And it's not clear as to exactly how Humphrey will integrate into the whole thing, but he is holding a candied apple or a caramel apple on the sign, so perhaps Humphrey the Bear's location will be somewhere to eat once that opens eventually. But for now, let's talk about what is open over at Storybook Circus. As you enter into the area, big, bright red construction walls are preventing guests from going where they shouldn't, into construction zones, but they do match the sort of color scheme of this circus, along with the new trash can designs that are red and white striped with the Storybook Circus logo. Cast members throughout Storybook Circus are wearing new costumes, which look really nice, definitely reminiscent of sort of what Timothy Mouse would wear as the ringmaster in the circus for Dumbo. Very nice, bright, vibrant costumes that all the cast members who were there on this opening day, or soft opening day, if you will, were really, really happy to be wearing, to be among the first to wear them. And then as soon as you enter into this area of Storybook Circus, immediately to the right is where guests first encounter the new Dumbo area. And this area of Storybook Circus is not completely complete yet. Only half of the new Dumbo is open. It is the new half, the clockwise spinning Dumbo carousel. Even the big top interior indoor interactive queue is not open yet, so I can't tell you anything about that for now. Guests are queuing up outside Dumbo in the hot sun, which is not the most pleasant experience in the world, but it's only temporary. Eventually, guests will be queuing up inside the big top. But for now, this new Dumbo carousel looks absolutely fantastic. It is a highly detailed, vibrantly colored version of Dumbo. It certainly has, from top to bottom, plenty of interesting story elements from Dumbo. If you sort of get the story of Dumbo from the very top of the whole spinning Dumbo carousel, where you see storks, and just below that you'll see Dumbo's mom and plenty of peanuts. And as the Dumbo carousel is spinning around, there's also new story panels to be found along its base, very similar to Cinderella's Golden Carousel or any of the sort of merry-go-round style carousels that tell the story of the movie that it's based on. The story of Dumbo is now told through a series of panels as well at the base of it, which is really nice. But the biggest and most attractive new feature of Dumbo is the water feature that's been added. It looks particularly great at night. At the base, underneath where the Dumbos go around, there are a number of these gorgeous water fountains that are spurting out water. There's a pool underneath, and there's multicolored, changing LED lighting that just looks absolutely fantastic. I kind of call it Walt Disney World's version of World of Color in a way. At night, it is just the most phenomenal looking Dumbo that I've ever seen. I never really wanted to be anywhere near Dumbo in the past, but now that it looks like this, I could just stand there and watch Dumbo go around for a very long time, which is actually what I did on Monday when it opened. I just stood there and watched multiple rides of Dumbo over and over and over. I didn't want to wait in the line to actually ride Dumbo, but to just stand there and watch it going around was absolutely wonderful. Certainly a highlight of what Storybook Circus is all about, and the detail throughout Storybook Circus is just wonderful. All the different sort of tiny elements that really pull together the whole theme and the story of what Storybook Circus is, which is essentially that the circus has come to town. There's two parts of this Storybook Circus area. The train station, which I'll talk about in a minute, is a more permanent-looking building, whereas the rest of Storybook Circus, Dumbo and the Barnstormer and what we haven't even seen yet in the remaining circus tents, all look very temporary in nature on purpose and in varying degrees of newness, I suppose you will. Dumbo, being the main attraction, looks the brightest and the newest and the shiniest and fantastic, whereas the Barnstormer looks a little bit more run down and is supposed to be an older attraction in this grand story of this traveling circus that has moved into town just outside the new Fantasyland. All along the walkways throughout Storybook Circus are textured paths that have sort of animal footprints, and even in one part embedded within the ground are these peanut shells, or fake peanut shells for anybody out there who has already expressed worry about peanut allergies. They're not real. They are fake peanuts that are embedded in the ground, but just sort of a nod there to the circus. Of course, you get lots of peanuts and Dumbo and all of that. Moving on to the Barnstormer, it's definitely, this sort of rite of passage roller coaster has never looked better. The old Barnstormer's given a complete overhaul. The track is the same, but really that's it. Everything else looks entirely new. The entrance sign for the Barnstormer definitely looks like this just sort of big wooden sign that's been set up hastily. By the way, the new Barnstormer sign, if you look on the reverse side of it, you'll actually see the old Goofy's Wiseacre Farms sign. It's been sort of reworked and reconfigured into the new Barnstormer sign, which is really nice touch there. But the Barnstormer in general has this feel of it being a very weathered old attraction that's been traveling for years and years and has now set up in Storybook Circus here. And as you approach the new Barnstormer featuring the Great Goofini, which is of course Goofy's circus name now, you'll see some of the acts that the Goofini has done in the past, like Tiger juggling, which is a particularly amusing one. One performance only there for safety's sake, I suppose. And then as you work your way through the new Barnstormer queue, there's plenty of other acts that the Goofini has tried in the past, getting shot out of a cannon, and being hooked up to the wheel of peril and having knives thrown at him, and all of that kind of thing. Of course, it all ends poorly. The Goofini's not the best circus performer ever, but he certainly does his job at entertaining the crowd, and the Barnstormer is the culmination of it all. There's a really huge new sort of billboard for the Great Goofini as the Barnstormer, and this is the item that the roller coaster sort of crashes into every time it goes around the track now. It's a wonderful sight, a great photo op, great for people to take pictures of their friends and family members on the ride, or you can just watch the ride going around and around and around many times. Definitely a very entertaining sight. They've really opened up the Barnstormer attraction more so than it ever was, so you can see the coaster a lot better. You can kind of get up close and watch it going around the track, and it all just really looks fantastic. Then just down the way, the new Fantasyland Train Station, completely different theme than the rest of Storybook Circus, because as I said, this is supposed to look like a more permanent area, as if this is the town that Storybook Circus moved into. And Disney has put some really nice touches into this new Fantasyland Train Station. A very elegant looking building with a lot of brick and a lot of inspiration from Disney's past. In fact, this new Walt Disney World Railroad station has taken direct inspiration from Walt Disney's own backyard railroad that he had in his home before he ever created Disneyland. It was sort of the lead up to Disneyland. As such, the new Fantasyland Train Station has a sign on there that reads Carrollwood Park, which is basically the new location into which the Storybook Circus has set up. The Carrollwood Pacific Railroad, of course, was the name of Walt Disney's own personal train. So a really nice nod to Disney history there. And the whole building just looks fantastic. There's posters really nicely framed throughout the whole thing. On the backside of it, there's some new restrooms that are just totally brick covered and look like a train station, but they are restrooms. And, it's not often you can say that restrooms look fantastic, but these really do. There's lots of theming throughout the area, cargo and luggage, and it seems Disney's been adding more and more of that as time has gone on. And overall, Storybook Circus just looks really nice. There's lots of flowers and trees throughout the area, and it certainly looks even more gorgeous after dark, as does much of Disney's theme parks. But this is definitely no exception. Lots of deep, rich colors, soft orange hues created by the lighting around Storybook Circus, and it's a great area to hang out in. I never wanted to hang out in Mickey's Toontown Fair. Very much a kid-oriented area, but this area feels just nice. It's formerly Toontown was crowded and crazy, and you never really knew where to go, and there was just stuff going on everywhere. But now this area, even though it's not complete, Storybook Circus is not complete and not even close to being complete, it is still an enjoyable area. One of the things that really makes it a wonderful place to hang around in is the great new music that's being played in this Storybook Circus area. And of course, I did record plenty of binaural audio walking through Storybook Circus and focusing in on some of the music as well. And there will be some video accompanying this for those of you watching the video version of the show. So first, I want to take you over to the new Dumbo. Of course, as I said, it's only half open at this point, but I want to give a listen to what the new Dumbo sounds like. And for those of you watching the video version, you can see the new Dumbo at night as well. And it's this is binaural audio, so put on your headphones for the most enjoyment of this, and we'll really get a sense of what it sounds like to be standing there next to the new Dumbo in Storybook Circus.
Okay, Dumbo, let's get this show on the road! proceed until Dumbo comes to a stop. Then you can walk to the nearest exit. See you soon!
So there you have it, a bit of Dumbo, the new Dumbo over in Storybook Circus. Now I want to share even more of the great new music of Storybook Circus with you. I found a sort of corner of the new area of the Magic Kingdom where there was not too much crowd commotion going on there. It was near the Fantasyland Train Station, the area where you get off, and of course occasionally people, train did pull up and there were people getting off, but other than that, it was a fairly noise-free environment and a great opportunity to listen in to a few minutes and a couple of songs that are playing as part of Storybook Circus's new musical loop that Disney has created. It definitely ties in great with the circus theme, but also sort of has this great feel of classic, almost Main Street style music. Certainly a very, very enjoyable music to listen to while walking through the new land. And for those of you watching the video version, accompanying this music will be just sort of a video walkthrough of the area as well. So now let's head on back into Storybook Circus to enjoy a few of the songs played within. And there you have it, a bit of the music, and for those of you watching the video version, some of the visuals, a walkthrough of Storybook Circus, just a really fantastic land. What is most wonderful about Storybook Circus is not the fact that the Barnstormer looks better than ever, not the fact that Dumbo looks better than ever, not the fact that the train station looks better than ever, but the promise of the future of not only this area, but the rest of New Fantasyland. Anybody who was ever skeptical about what the potential of the New Fantasyland expansion at the Magic Kingdom was going to bring, if this is the level of detail and immersion and sort of relaxation and an enjoyable environment that Disney has creating through these new areas, then I am really, really looking forward to it. Storybook Circus just looks fantastic, sounds fantastic, and is certainly something that I'll be looking forward to seeing in the coming years evolve and open to all of it's going to be done by 2014. So we're still quite a ways away from it all opening. Of course, New Fantasyland expansion will be continuing throughout this year with the Be Our Guest restaurant and surrounding Beauty and the Beast area, the Little Mermaid ride, all of that's scheduled to be opening throughout the rest of this year, moving into next year, and all the way up until it all completing in 2014. So it's still an ongoing project, but just to see this small portion of this largest ever Magic Kingdom expansion looking so fantastic and receiving such praise from so many around Disney fans, then it's really a wonderful thing that Disney has put together here, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of it. Of course, if you want to see more of it, you can head on over to InsideTheMagic.net. You can browse through the many photos I took of throughout Storybook Circus, watch some more video as well, including Dumbo at night, which is something you really don't want to miss. And we do have one more quick feature to get to on this week's show, but first I want to put in a quick word about Lanyard Lab. If you've got a business to promote, or perhaps a convention you'll be attending where you need to wear a name tag, or you're going to a school or a church or any organization that requires you to wear an ID card, custom lanyards, a great way to do it. You can customize your lanyards over at lanyardlab.com, and there you can submit to us any text or logos, any colors, any details you want to put on the lanyards, of course the pieces of material you hang around your neck, and submit that through the quote request form on our website. Once we receive that, we'll email you back with a complete price quote for your design, along with a proof showing you what your lanyards will look like, and then you can buy it online if you like what you see. Otherwise, you can reply back with changes. It is completely free to preview, no obligation to purchase whatsoever, so check it out over at lanyardlab.com. That's LANYARDLAB.com.
Inside the Magic DVD Review.
It is time to light the lights on the new Muppets release coming out this Tuesday, March 20th. The Muppets, of course, the recent movie that I reviewed here on the show, a glowing review, really enjoyed the film, is coming home in the form of Blu-ray and DVD and digital download and on demand and all that good stuff. And I have a preview copy to talk all about if you want to learn more about what extras have been added to this great movie. That is what I am here to share. Specifically, I'm talking about the Muppets Waka Waka Value Pack, and Disney has called it that because there is more than a normal amount of extras featured in there. Not only does the Blu-ray release that comes with this have some great extras on it, which I'll talk about in just a second, but the unique thing that comes with the Waka Waka Value Pack is the fact that they've included a code to where you can download the soundtrack to the Muppets. The recent film starring Amy Adams, Jason Segel, and of course the whole cast of characters from Kermit the Frog, Miss Piggy, and beyond. You can get the soundtrack included with this release, which is something particularly unique in addition to the Blu-ray, the DVD, digital download, and all of that. So something interesting to consider there when you're deciding on which version of the movie you want to buy. Now, of course, the movie itself, The Muppets on Blu-ray, looks fantastic. I wouldn't expect any less. It's a recent film. It's, of course, high definition, looks great, looks just like a it did on the big screen. Not too much else to say about it. It's not like it's a big budget action movie or anything where you need to talk about the surround sound or anything like that. It just, it transferred well. It looks just like you would think it looks like, but it's really the extras that I want to focus on here to help you decide which version of this release. There's something called, on the Blu-ray, the longest blooper reel ever made in Muppet history, we think. Typical Muppet humor there, and it's basically a very long, legitimate blooper reel. It's not like fake bloopers that they've put together like they do with Pixar films sometimes. These are seems like real bloopers that the Muppets and the human actors had while on set shooting the film, and it is definitely a very long blooper reel, but it is funny. They did a good job editing it all together. There's another featurette called Scratching the Surface, a hasty examination of the making of Disney's The Muppets. This featurette is hosted by another Muppet. He's Manager Monster JG, and basically does sort of the behind-the-scenes look at the making of the film, but in a very Muppet sort of way, with a lot of humor intertwined throughout the whole thing. It's not a very serious feature. You're not going to get legitimate behind-the-scenes views here, but for the most part, I mean, there are some here and there, but for the most part, it's sort of mock interviews, and it's a fun addition to the Muppets movie because you get more of that Muppets humor in addition to just watching the movie itself. Now, if you were confused, like many, many were, about the motivations behind the villain of the movie, Tex Richman, and particularly confused by somewhere in the middle of the movie where he broke out into a rap song, well, the DVD, or rather the Blu-ray release, helps to explain that a little bit. Apparently, a lot of that got left on the cutting room floor because it was just such a bizarre scene. Didn't really fit necessarily, definitely not one of the best scenes from the whole film. It was much longer. It was probably twice as long, if not 3 times as long, and it completely explains Tex Richman's whole backstory as to why exactly he hates the Muppets so much, which was never really explained in the movie. Now, if you didn't like the rap song in the movie, you'll like this even less because it's, as I said, 2 or 3 times longer than what was seen. But it does explain more about that character, which helps a bit. So I would recommend seeing it. It's not great, and I can understand why most of it ended up being cut from the film. Another really, really interesting bonus feature on this release is something called a little screen test on the way to the read-through. This is basically where they shot a screen test of the Muppets in different situations, indoor, outdoor, long shots, medium shots, different lighting, etc., and actually wove it into a story. They wanted to see how it all would look when creating the final film, make sure they had the right look and feel for the movie, but they made this almost little short film about sort of walking to the read-through for the film, starring the Muppets and Jason Segel and everyone else. It's amusing to see. It's not spectacular or anything, but it is kind of interesting to see what goes into the making of a film like this. There are a whole bunch of deleted or extended scenes included, and as always with deleted scenes, they're deleted for a reason. They don't really add a whole lot, and in this case, it's true as well. Some are just like 10-second additional shots, or a little bit longer, but none of it is particularly enjoyable or, nothing too special there. Included as well are all the spoof trailers that the Muppets put out over the last, year and a half, spoofing other movies as well. Very, very enjoyable. There's a couple that were previously unreleased as well, which is really great to see. They're not as great as the other ones, and I'm sure that's why they didn't release them, but certainly enjoyable there. There's audio commentary with Jason Segel, James Bobin, and Nicholas Stoller, which is something I actually did not have a chance to watch before talking about it today. I'm not a huge fan of commentary usually because I try so hard to pay attention to the movie that I have a hard time listening to somebody else talk about the movie while I'm watching the movie. I usually like to see a movie many, many times over before watching the commentary because then I can kind of forget about what's going on in the film and just pay attention to what they're saying about it. So since I've only seen The Muppets, the movie in its entirety, the one time in the theater so far, I didn't want to dive into the audio commentary quite yet, but I will eventually after I watch the movie a few more times. For now, I just sort of sampled it to make sure that all transferred very well. And finally, this was definitely my favorite bonus feature and something really unique that I hope Disney introduces more of in the future. It's a new feature on this Blu-ray release called Disney Intermission. They're calling it a groundbreaking Blu-ray feature. let's say you're watching the Muppets. Somebody you're watching with needs to go grab a snack. You hit pause on the movie. Normally, it just freezes on the screen. Well, now with the Muppets Blu-ray release, it actually goes to an intermission screen, like the Muppet Theater, red curtains up there, and the Muppets come out and entertain you while you are waiting, and it's absolutely hilarious. They do just little sight gags here and there. Different Muppets will come across. They'll do a little dance routine or just quick gags, quick jokes, that is, and sometimes after a few minutes it'll say, and now let's take a look at one of the bonus features on the Blu-ray release, which is another great way to watch the extras. Sometimes you watch the movie, forget about the extras, but this way you could pause the movie while somebody else is doing whatever they need to do, and you can enjoy some of the extras, but there's plenty more than just the regular bonus features woven in here. It's a whole new set of entertainment that, honestly, even if you're not actually pausing the movie for somebody and, waiting for something to happen, you're going to want to do it anyway just to watch the Disney intermission. Every time you play and pause and play and pause, it plays a different series of Disney intermission sequences, and they are all absolutely hilarious, starring pretty much the whole cast of the movie as well, which is a really great feature. I would love to see more of that in future releases. I think it would work really well for Pixar releases where they could animate new sequences for this intermission. Definitely my favorite bonus feature of the bunch. So there you go. A very solid release overall. It's more than just the Muppets movie, which is a great movie unto itself. If you get the Waka Waka value pack, you get all the stuff I just mentioned, including the soundtrack. Definitely a really great release. And, of course, if you're going to pick it up, it comes out this Tuesday. It's available for ordering on Amazon, and I'd appreciate it if you clicked through the Amazon affiliate link over at InsideTheMagic.net for placing that order. So there it is, your Muppets Blu-ray Waka Waka release review.
Hey, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky. Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Ricky.
Ricky, this is amazing.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Inside the Magic listener feedback.
Just a little bit of listener feedback this week before we wrap up the show. Of course, last week I had caught up on a lot of listener feedback, so it's good to have just sort of a normal amount this week once again. And let's jump right into it with a 3-question email from Alice, who writes, is Disney going to be doing anything to celebrate the upcoming Olympics in merchandise or in the parks? Number 2, do you recommend going to the Walt Disney Family Museum? I'm going to San Francisco this summer along with Disneyland, of course. And number 3, do you know much about the story of Brave? Alice, 3 really excellent questions. Thanks very much for the email. As far as the Olympics goes, I'm sure Disney will be tying it in with plenty of pins and other merchandise. It may not be official merchandise. It may not be able to say Olympics on it. It may not be able to have the Olympic rings on it, but Disney always has tie-ins with merchandise to the Olympics, so I wouldn't doubt that that will be happening. Number 2, a Walt Disney Family Museum. Absolutely. I loved it when I visited there recently. In fact, I talked fairly extensively about it on a recent podcast, and I'm just pulling up the number of that show. I think it was show 347. If you want to go back to that show and listen to my complete report from that museum, I definitely highly recommend that you go there. Really, really excellent place. Number 3, about the story of Pixar's upcoming film Brave, opening in just a couple of months now. I don't know a whole lot about the story beyond the tale of Merida, the lead Scottish girl character. Seems like there's a bit of a fantasy element going on there somewhere in this story of being brave, being courageous, going on an adventure. But I've chosen actually not to read too much into it because I like to be completely surprised by a film, and it seems like the trailers are really trying to do that too. They're really just barely scratching the surface about what this film is going to be, so I'm really looking forward to it. It seems like it's going to be an excellent Pixar movie, another excellent Pixar movie, but I don't want to know too much about what the full story is just yet. Now let's go on to a voice message from Adam.
Hey, Ricky. My name is Adam. I live in Washington State. In the next few weeks, on March 31st, we're getting ready to go down on a trip to Orlando, Florida, and we're going to be staying at the Walt Disney World Resort. I have a few questions I want to know before we make our little trip there. I heard that Kilimanjaro Safari and Test Track, we're going to be going under some renovation coming soon. Do you think this renovation will be going on during our trip because we really want to see Kilimanjaro and test track before they sort of close down or something. Also, we're staying at the Bay Lake Tower, and we took a lot of advantages last time. We tried to use it the best we could. And I have one more. If there's any advice you recommend to us, what would you recommend to us to make the most of our magical trip down there? Thanks for taking your time, Ricky, and have a magical day.
Well, thanks very much for calling all of that in. With regards to Kilimanjaro Safaris and Test Track, Kilimanjaro Safaris is not going to be shutting down completely ever. So you don't have to worry about that. They are removing the poaching Little Red sort of area near the end of the attraction in order to add more zebras to it, more live zebras, and removing that animatronic that's been there for so long. But the attraction will remain open throughout the whole construction process. You don't have to worry about that. With regards to Test Track, however, it's going to be April, next month sometime, that they're going to be closing that down all the way through the summer. So you definitely need to be aware of that. As far as extra magical things to add to your vacation, I always, whenever I get asked this question, I always recommend do things outside of the theme parks. When you're in a theme park, you've got a map in front of you, and there's so much to see. You've got a list of attractions, you've got restaurants, you've got shows, etc., and it's easy to sort of pick out all the different experiences to enjoy there. But there's so much more to Walt Disney World than just the theme parks. If you go around to different hotels and just kind of browse and look around and see the amazing architecture and the theming and all of the details that Disney has put into the different hotels, that's an attraction unto itself. And, of course, explore downtown Disney, go to mini golf, take in a few of the extra shows. It's go to dinner outside of the parks as well. Definitely all those extra experiences to enjoy outside of the theme parks that can make a vacation a little bit more magical. Next email from Bobby in New Jersey is responding to Sarah, who wrote in recently about bus service at Treehouse Villas. Bobby writes, there are two stops, north and south. You have to take the bus from the Treehouse stop to the main Saratoga Springs Resort and then get off at the first bus stop in the main resort. From there, you take a bus to wherever your destination is to be that day. Then at the end of the day, you take the Saratoga bus back to the main resort, then get off at one of the stops at that main resort and wait for the Treehouse bus. And then you take the Treehouse bus back to the tree houses in one of the two stops there, whichever your particular villa is closest to. I have stayed at the Treehouse Villa several times now since Saratoga Springs is my home resort in the Disney Vacation Club. The bus service isn't as confusing as it sounds. Any questions you have, if you do get confused, the bus drivers are more than willing to help you out. Just ask them for assistance. Bobby, thanks very much for clearing that up. I knew there was bus service available there, but it sounds like it's not direct bus service from Treehouse to various locations around Walt Disney World. You do have to make sort of that extra stop there, which is going to add to any, a bit of transit time for sure, which is, bus service at Walt Disney World is not always the speediest thing, but it works as long as you're willing to be patient and wait. Now let's go back to the voicemail.
Hi, Ricky. This is Ron from Kentucky, and I'm calling to follow up with leave a message on show 362. You talked about a video that was made of some kids invading the construction of the Transformers ride. Now, I didn't get to see the video, but it reminded me incredibly of a story that Charles Ridgway, the publicist for Disneyland and Walt Disney World, in his book called Spinning Disney's World, when he was a reporter at a Los Angeles paper before he went to work for Disney, early 1955, when Disneyland construction was in process, he got his editor to let him use a boy in the neighborhood to do a picture story that looked like the kid had snuck into Disneyland under the fence. And they took pictures of him doing things like fishing in a lake that had no water, and doing a couple of things like that he would have done when the park was open, but the park wasn't finished; it was still under construction. So it looks like that the Universal guys who might have planted that video might have taken that old Charles Ridgway ploy and just modernized it for modern media and did it on video instead of in the newspaper. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, but it just happened to be that I just read that in his
And unfortunately, the voice message got cut off there, but I got the gist of that. Thanks very much for the call, Ron, and definitely interesting sort of tie-in there. Yeah, last week I did talk about that viral video that Universal Hollywood put out for Transformers of kids supposedly sneaking into the attraction, and good to know that ploy, though viral videos didn't exist decades ago, YouTube, of course, didn't exist, the internet didn't even exist then, even in the world of the newspaper, that Charlie Ridgway, of course, Disney legend, was able to drum up some publicity and really make a unique and interesting article out of the same exact type of sort of mock breaking in idea. Sort of YouTube prior to YouTube's existence, I suppose. So good. Thanks very much for that call. Next up, an email from JB, who writes in response to a question you had from Danielle in show 362 last week about the best way for parking when staying off property. She mentioned she visits every 6 months and blames you for that. If her visits are at minimum about 5 to 6 days each, then I would recommend just getting the out-of-state annual pass for $519 each, or at least one pass for someone in the party. When you do the math, it weighs out paying the $14 a day for parking, not to mention the merchandise discount that you get. If she does this, though, she may end up blaming you for wanting to visit even more than every 6 months. JB, really good point there. There's always some math to be considered when it comes to annual passes, whether it's hotel discounts, merchandise discounts, or parking discounts. If you do frequent the parks, it may seem crazy to be out of state and you only come maybe twice a year to get an annual pass, but because of those discounts, it very well could outweigh the extra costs that you would be paying if you were to come and just buy a regular ticket and then pay for parking and pay for the extra for hotel and pay for full price on all your merchandise. If you buy a lot of stuff, if you're parking your car, it could balance out that extra price and you'd have an annual pass. And of course, then it may entice you to come back even more, which I'm sure is Disney's point in all of that. But yeah, excellent tip there, JB. And we were talking about John Carter earlier, and actually just now I saw it come across my inbox that John Carter, in addition to the not-so-great performance in its second weekend here in the United States, also pulled in about $40 or $41 million or so overseas, which is about a $30 million drop from last week. And so it's not doing particularly great, but Armando wanted to chime in with his own thoughts about the movie as well.
Hey, Ricky, this is Armando from Texas. Just wanted to chime in real quick on John Carter. I am so glad I took your advice and went and saw it. It's an awesome movie, very well made. The pacing is very good as well. Good balance of dialogue, action, and just the overall length of the movie is awesome. My two older boys enjoyed it as well. They found the whole space-time continuum travel very entertaining. I don't know why the purpose of all the critics is to trash the film so much. I don't know if maybe it was offered to another studio first and they turned it down and then realized the potential of the franchise. But anyway, I'm just so glad I listened to the show and took the hints that you released that it was a good movie, because when we saw the trailers, we thought the same thing as everyone else. Boring movie, waste of time. Mars Needs Moms Part 2, something to that effect. But like I said, glad took to your advice. Lastly, one major pet peeve is I hate the new Disney logo at the beginning of the films. I do not understand why they dropped the Walt Disney name to just Disney. I don't know if they're trying to distance themselves from the man or the image of Walt to just a regular corporation, but I don't know. I don't like it at all. I think they would just leave Walt Disney Pictures alone. Walt Disney created it, invented it. It was his baby. And I don't feel a need to rebrand it to Disney everything. So that's my 2 cents, and enjoy the show tremendously, and keep up the good work, and thank you.
Great. Thanks very much for that message. Definitely some good points there. Glad you enjoyed John Carter. I mentioned John Carter on Facebook the other day, just kind of reposting a link to the review prior to this weekend, encouraging everybody once again to go out and see it. And everybody, almost every single person that responded that went and saw John Carter after hearing my review last week did indeed like it, much as you did. And so I'm happy to play my part, at least in a little bit, in trying to get the movie to do a little bit better. It's really, unfortunately, failing as a result of what you said, that the trailers just made it look awful. And I thought it was going to be awful going into it, and I really enjoyed it, which was a big surprise, which is nice. Of course, going into any movie with extremely low expectations always helps a bit, but it really was not a bad movie at all. And with regards to the name Disney and only Disney being plastered on everything in a branding move, you were absolutely right. In fact, it was brought up at the 2012 shareholders meeting just a few days ago. It was asked of Bob Iger, of somebody who was visiting Walt Disney World and Disneyland, noticed that it was the Disney Parks logo being put on everything rather than each specific area. And the shareholder brought up the point that each park has its own unique personality, and it's a sort of a treat to be able to visit Disneyland versus Walt Disney World. And it's one of those things where I think Disney's marketing and branding is really taking a hold of everything, so much so that you're losing that sort of connection to, as you said, Walt Disney Pictures or Walt Disney World and Disneyland. And it is unfortunate. I think at some point we are going to see sort of that turnaround as soon as somebody over there realizes that it's not quite the same connection for everybody as when you've got that Walt Disney name in there. You were definitely not alone in thinking that. It is weird to see just the name Disney attached to the films. And one final email before we wrap all of this up comes from Ryan, who writes, Ryan from Vancouver, that is, and Ryan writes, I recently started collecting pins and Vinylmation. I'm visiting Disneyland a few times this summer, and I know you can trade pins, and I was wondering if you can trade Vinylmation. If so, would you suggest, what would you suggest is the easiest way to carry around the Vinylmation, and what is the best location to trade? And last but not least, what are your expectations for Cars Land and Buena Vista Street? Well, Ryan, I have a lot of pins. I don't do a lot of pin trading. I am not into Vinylmation at all. I have a handful of them because they're specifically themed to things that I like, whether it's Haunted Mansion or the old Disney Afternoon, Darkwing Duck, DuckTales, etc. But beyond that, I'm not a big Vinylmation collector. Yes, you can do Vinylmation trading, and yes, I imagine carrying around a whole bunch of Vinylmation figures would be really obnoxious. It's already heavy enough to carry a whole bunch of pieces of metal that are the pins, but at least those are smaller. Vinylmations are big and clunky and definitely more difficult to trade, but it does happen. A lot of people bring their collections with them to, let's say, downtown Disney and trade with each other. There's also these trading bins that you can do with Disney. Some are, I guess there's these blind boxes or something where you don't even know which one you're getting, but then whatever you pick, you trade, etc., etc. It's not for me entirely. I can see the collectible nature of it. I can see why people like it, but I don't personally enjoy it all that much. Just trading in general, I prefer just to buy what I like and then just keep it. I'm not big on the whole trading part of it. And just to answer your question there at the end, Cars Land and Buena Vista Street, I'm really looking forward to it all. Though I'm not the biggest Cars fan in the world, I think Cars Land is going to be a phenomenal area, really rich with lots of detail and just a wonderful new area to explore, some fun rides in there. I'm really looking forward to getting on Luigi's Flying Tires. That looks like it's going to be a whole lot of fun. And Buena Vista Street, great place to shop, lots of entertainment that I was talking about earlier, great overall feel and theme, and I think it's going to be a wonderful area to just sit down, relax, watch the red car trolleys go by, dine at the Carthay Circle Theater, and just enjoy the overall experience of being in this sort of 20s, 30s era when Walt Disney stepped off the train in California to create all that he did over the many years he was around. So I'm really looking forward to seeing all of that in mid-June when that opens up. And that'll do it for listener feedback this week. And this is where we will end show 363. I want to mention once again that while today is a usual Sunday show, next week there won't be a Sunday show. There will be a show 364, but it's going to come a couple of days later because I will be on board the Disney Fantasy for a few days beginning this coming Friday. And when I return and have a chance to gather all my thoughts about this new Disney Cruise Line ship, I will be back with a fun episode describing all of what is great about the new cruise and certainly comparing it to the Disney Dream, which I talked extensively about here on the show last year in January. If you want to go back and listen to that, then let's see if I can find the show number specifically. Oh gosh, I don't know. Just go back to January 2011 and look for the Disney Dream episodes, and you will find plenty about that ship and leading up to the Disney Fantasy. So look for next week's show on maybe Tuesday or Wednesday rather than Sunday. Certainly follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just add /Inside the Magic to those to find out exactly when that will be taking place. In the meantime, I do want to thank Magical Travel for sponsoring this week's episode of Inside the Magic. You can find out more about their travel services, including booking a trip on the Disney Cruise Line, by visiting magicaltravel.com. And also, once again, I'd like to welcome back Theme Park Connection as a sponsor of this show. They've announced they're working on a reality TV show, which is pretty exciting for all of you Disney collectors out there. I think you will enjoy that whenever that makes it to the air, which, no further details at this point. Also, they've more than doubled the size of their store here in Winter Garden, very close to Walt Disney World. ThemeParkConnection.com is where you can find out more about all of that. I haven't mentioned this in a couple of weeks, but the website's kind of been sitting there for now, but we'll definitely get more and more on it. FilmGeekTweets.com is my newest website, along with the Dawes brothers, Jeremiah and Josh, where we're tweeting movie reviews. A lot of fun to be had there, so check out that as well. And of course, LanyardLab.com is my day job. Go check it out. It's good. It makes money for me, and that's a good thing because it lets me do Inside the Magic also. And so if you need lanyards, that's the place to go. Of course, between episodes of this show, visit InsideTheMagic.net. And thanks for listening and watching each and every week. And now we'll end the show by saying, have a magical week. Goodbye.
Just a dream away.